Hi, this is Ken Parker welcoming you to another episode of Common Ground, the policy roundtable where we bring together a panel with diverse views on issues of concern to Newton residents and try to hammer out some of our differences. For those of you who are new to the show, let me introduce our format. First, I introduce a topic. Then we go around the table with each panelist expressing a viewpoint. I then select the two panelists who disagree the most strongly and ask them to speak directly to one another in hopes of finding some area of agreement. At the end of the segment, I give an assessment of how we did at finding common ground and put in my 2 cents on the topic. We have, as always on this show, a fabulous panel, but a particularly exciting panel tonight, I must say, and some really interesting, important topics. There's nothing, frankly, of course, more exciting than zoning reform. So zoning, everybody gets people rushing out, you know. Actually, the irony is that with our audience, that's probably mostly true. But people love zoning in here. No, and of course, we'll also be talking about some environmental issues. Without further ado, let me introduce tonight's panel. Tarik Lucas. Tarik, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
We've been trying to get you on for years. It's just so exciting to finally get you fit into your schedule.
Thank you.
Tarik is a member of the Newtonville Area Council.
That's right.
And I'm sure you've got many other credentials you want to talk about.
I am also on the Newtonville Historic District Commission as well.
Wow.
So
heavily into the Newtonville scene.
Yes, Newtonville and I are one and the same.
Okay, there you go. And well, anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
My friend Emily Norton is back on the show. Emily is the Ward 2 ward councilor now, formerly ward alderman. All right, you were an alderman at one point.
I was.
For many years you were an alderman.
For 1 year.
Because you changed it. I know you were, when you ran for alderman,
ran as an alderman,
and then you made them change it to a...
Enough people saying to me, what's an alderman?
Yes,
and I'd say, it's like a city councilor.
It's Dutch for old man. That's what I told people when I was on and was 21 years old. So I'm an old man, and I told old man jokes then, so it worked. Now my old man jokes are closer to my age. Right?
I just also want to say happy Valentine's Day, and I'm loving being here with all of you.
Well, you're all fabulous Valentines to have here to celebrate today. And of course, Emily, you've also been very involved in environmental organizations. You were the head of the Massachusetts Sierra Club for a while, and now is it the Charles River Watershed Association?
Yes.
And you were the executive director of that. Well, thank you again for being back on the show.
It's great to be here.
And Julia Malakie, great to have you on, Julia. I'm pretty sure this is the second time you've been on the show. Because I remember when you ran for, I think then Alderman at Large from Ward 3. You came on a few years back.
And so much has happened in between that
It's hard to remember. I know.
Apologize for forgetting that.
No, it was an exciting moment in television history. So
I'm glad you thought so.
Our fans remember it well, I'm sure. But anyway, and you are a photojournalist,
right? Lowell Sun. In February, if the hedge fund doesn't get rid of the photo department, I'll be 30 years at the Lowell Sun.
Wow.
So it's hard to believe how fast it's gone.
Well, that's a lot of solar rotations at the Sun there.
A lot of Golden Gloves boxing tournaments, a lot of graduations, a lot of sports events. Yep.
And of course, you're also very involved in Newton. You are involved in trees in particular.
Right.
What are you the head of?
So president of the Newton Tree Conservancy. I think this is about my 3rd year in that position, and I'm about to be in the process of being reappointed to the Urban Tree Commission, and those are sort of my official positions.
Your official
I guess.
positions.
Yeah.
And you're sort of generally tree guru to the city when people have, I know that when I have a question about what kind of tree is this and what's going on.
I hop out of my car and trim off broken branches.
I was jogging once down Beacon Street and you were like examining the trees from that.
That might have been the sidewalk episode. Yeah.
Yes, you were like cataloging and charting them. I'm coming back from my job. Anyway, I got a terrible time on that run because I had to stop and chat. But no, it's your fault.
Now remember
That was your
that.
excuse
You
for
remember
stopping
that.
Yes,
anyway.
exactly. I got to catch my breath.
Yeah.
Anyway, so lots to get to. So we will be talking about several environmental related issues, but let's get to that zoning question first. We've been trying to puzzle out on this show, and I think many people in the city have been trying to puzzle out what exactly is in this proposed zoning reform, as it's being called. In the past, I've been almost embarrassed, as I've sort of been like repeating things I've heard say, "Call me up if that's right," or that's wrong. So I sat down with my colleague Nathaniel Lichten, and we started combing through the proposed zoning ordinance just to understand what one could build by right, in other words, without a special permit. What you could do with your property under this new zoning ordinance. And so right now, under the current zoning, it's pretty simple. There are a few different single residence zoning districts, a few multi-resident zoning districts. So if you live in a single residence zoning district, you can build one house. And anything other than one house requires a special permit from the Board of Aldermen.
City Council.
Yes.
Council.
Thank you.
I worked really hard on that.
Yes, thank you. Or possibly a variance from the ZBA, or in some very unusual circumstances. Or there is the possibility also of a 40B if you had a really large lot. So there are a few other things, but you need to go somewhere and ask somebody for a permit. Under the proposal, though, there are lots of ways of building. Oh, and of course, if you're in a multifamily district, under the current zoning, you get to build a 2-family, or depending on which multifamily, or a 3-family. There are setback requirements, there are frontage requirements, there are floor area ratio requirements, but basically it's that simple. You get to, there's this table, it's easy to figure out what you can do. People were having, I was wondering, like, why can't anyone explain to me what would happen under this new ordinance? And then I sat down to read it. And now I understand why no one can understand it, because there are so many
much
different things
much
that you can do with your lot. So just to run down a few of the possibilities under the new zoning of things you can do, I made a chart. So one of the possibilities, if you happen to be in a Residence 1, Residence 2, Residence 3, or Neighborhood General District, which is where most of the housing in the city is under this proposal, you will then be able to, if your lot is large enough, do what's called cluster housing. Cluster housing means that you need a courtyard somewhere in the middle of the lot, and then you can put as many houses as you can fit onto the lot. So I took a look at the map of the city, the zoning map, and just randomly picked out some addresses to see. Well, before we get to that, the next thing you might be able to do.
That would make a great Google map.
Yeah,
You should plot those.
I think that my colleague and I are probably going to do some kind of a report on this that we can post on our law firm's website and parkerkeo.com. And disseminate in the city at some point. But for now, this is just sort of where we are in this analysis. We've just kind of started it, and it's much more daunting than I'd originally expected. The next thing you might be able to do with your property, depending on where you are in the city, what district they put you in, is what's called a multi-building assemblage. You might be able to do that on your property. I'll talk in a second about where you can do that. The third possibility is an apartment building. They have two kinds of apartment buildings that you're allowed to do. One, they're called apartment houses, and the others are, actually there's more. There's small apartment buildings, large apartment buildings, but we categorize them all in the apartment building category. And then there's another thing you get to do under this proposed zoning, which you can't do now, which is by right subdivision. You can slice your property up into lots of lots, or more lots than it is now, as long as you have enough frontage on the street, which is something right now you can't do by right. You need to go to the city and ask for permission. So what we did is we just took a bunch of properties to say, hey, what can you build now? And there are two things that people have said about this zoning proposal, which I was a little skeptical whether they were true, but I wanted to see whether one thing is, this mostly just kind of codifies what's actually on the ground.
That's the planning department claim.
That's the plan with the planning department memo. It's not, nothing changes very much. So that was one claim. And one thing that made me skeptical of that claim is other people saying, oh, this is a moral imperative that we pass this because it will allow for more housing. Well, like, those both can't be true. Either it's codifying what's on the ground or it's going to result in more housing. So what was interesting to me is I thought maybe it would be liberalizing a little bit pretty much everywhere. Turns out that's not the case. Some places, some properties we looked at, you can build radically more than you can build now. And others, the existing houses are non-conforming because they have these house types. And if your house is bigger than one of these, they don't, right now, on a bigger lot, you can build a bigger house. That is no longer the case under this proposal. So many of the properties we looked at, you could build a single family house now, and you could build, let's take 100 Essex Road, one of the ones we looked at. You could build a courtyard cluster with 26 units of 1,400 square foot footprint each, or more than 26 units if the footprint's smaller than that. By right, without a special permit, or 5 large single-family houses of 6,000 square feet approximately each, by right on 100 Essex Road. How would you build the 6 large single-family houses? Well, it has 437 feet of frontage, so you would subdivide. So cluster housing or subdivision was possible on that property. We looked at 240 Chestnut Hill Road, 25 unit subdivision, 3 large single-family houses possible. Just looking, 98 Montvale, 31 units cluster development. Again, by right, no special permit. And right now, what can you build? 1. So that's 30 more units than you could build, or 31 times as many units as you could build now. Now, granted, those are smaller units than the big house that's probably
But smaller
there.
is relative, because I think they're capped at something like 2,400 feet.
Well, there's different house types.
Right.
There's type A, type B,
But
type C.
they call them cottage courts, but the cottages, so-called, are the size of what used to be standard houses.
These cluster houses
Yeah.
are smaller than their other house types. They're 1,400 square foot footprint, and they're 1.5 stories. So these are considerably smaller than the other option for like 98 Montvale, where you could put these basically 2,500 square foot footprint, 2.5 stories, so basically about a 6,000 square foot house. You could do on that site, I mean, the one we were looking at a minute ago, you could do 5 6,000 square foot houses or 26 for 1,400 plus, and then it's a 4.5, so depending on the half story, so that's another
That'd be
700. That's like a 2,000.
2,100.
It's like a
2,100.
normal what a
Right.
normal house used to be. And yeah, exactly. So anyway, I don't want to monopolize the time here. I just wanted to introduce this by pointing out that there's 4 different ways, at least, to building more. The apartment buildings are allowed by right. So they were talking about, I just took a quick look at Newton Highlands. You could do a 14-unit apartment building where the Newton House of Pizza is there. By right, just 14 units, no special permit. You could, the Victorian House next to Brookline Bank could be a 14-unit apartment building right there, no special permit. On Center Street, there are 4 lots that could probably be 14-unit apartment buildings. No special, now you can do more by special permit, and there are lots of other places, but these are just a few quick examples. On Needham Street, the McDonald's building could become a 64-unit apartment building, no permits required.
Wow.
So in other words, the commercial, one of the things I remember, we had a couple of these commissions. One was chaired by Malcolm Salter. I think the vice chair was Ruth Ann Fuller, our current mayor.
Citizens Advisory Group?
Yeah, the original Citizens Advisory Group. And then there was another one, like the Red Ribbon Commission it was called, or I forget what the type, but that one Ruth Ann chaired. And I remember one thing that they both agreed on was that the commercial tax base was vital to the health of the city, and I believe the statistic was that 1/3 of our commercial tax base was in the corridor along Needham Street up through Newton Center. And what it looks like this proposal, at a quick glance, would allow is tremendous erosion of that commercial tax base by putting residential structures. And then there are other mixed-use structures where they basically allow you to do it 5/6, if I can say that, residential, because the first floor has to either be 50 or 60% commercial, but the second and third floors can be 100% residential, and the rest of the first floor. So you basically got 2.5 floors of residential and a half floor of commercial in what used to be commercial manufacturing space. So that's obviously a tremendous erosion of our highly rateable commercial tax base. For folks who don't know, commercial properties pay about twice the taxes under Newton's system than residential. Plus, of course, they don't have quite the same demand for services, including public schools. So they're great for financing the rest of our wonderful services like our terrific Newton public school system. Anyway, so that was one shocker. The other type of shocker here was that there's other things, like tons of houses in Newton become non-conforming, either because they're bigger than it would be allowed in that district, in their new district designations. So non-conforming, in some lots are even unbuildable under their proposal that are currently buildable because they don't meet their minimum requirements. So lots of people's and then in many others, you can build much less than you could build under the current zoning. So it's not as though, there's real winners and losers under this proposal.
And there's also the element of things that would no longer be subject to special permits. Like you were talking about some of the by right, but some of the decisions would be moved over to an appointed board rather than elected officials.
This is just really, we only looked so far at this narrow issue of residential construction, and we haven't even finished looking at that. There are all kinds of other things. So what I want to do, and I think I'll start with Julie on this, is go around the table and say, based on what you understand of this, is this a good thing for Newton or not, and why or why not?
Well, not a good thing, and I guess the number one fail that I see is that, for years we heard that when we tried to have a moratorium on tear downs or do something about snout houses or demolition delays, we were told, wait for zoning reform. That was sort of implied that it would address the problem. And the actual result, mainly because they get rid of FAR, floor area ratio, as a constraining factor on house size, I did what various other people in the city have been doing, and I kind of looked at certain lots. I looked at one lot on Larkin Road, one lot on McCarthy Road, kind of plain vanilla average lots that were representative of the street. And I found that basically because there's no FAR cap, and because the setbacks are not a constraint, with their suggested maximum footprint of 1,600 square feet, you can basically build a 4,000 square foot house anywhere. So there's no disincentive to tear downs compared to today, or negligible, basically because what you can build, and I'm surprised to hear you say there are lots that are unbuildable, because it seems like in the vast majority of places where you have houses that have been there quite a while.
Well, there's a minimum frontage requirement under this.
There is, but I'm kind of looking at lots that are kind of typical and not weirdly
so you make a really
frontage.
interesting point. Just one thing we found was we looked at one lot. You need about 4,000 square feet in a multi-residence district, in what they call a residence 3, to build a three-story apartment building that would end up being two-family house that would be about 6,000 square feet, because you're allowed to have 2,000 square foot footprint.
And three full
and
stories.
And so you would end up, the math is, with a 1.5 floor area ratio, where the existing floor area ratio for those sites that we were looking at, which are MR1s right now, multi-residence 1s, on our existing zoning, is 0.48. So it's more than 3 times the density of what you could build now. So that's certainly true in many, many cases, that you could build much denser. I'm just saying there's also sites where you can't build it as, you can build one house under the current zoning, and one house under the new zoning, and the house you could build under the current zoning is considerably larger, because it's bigger than one of the house types. For example, or even maybe the dimensions are different, because there's a minimum footprint. So if you've got a 2,500 square foot maximum, I should say, footprint on your new zoning, and your house is 2,600 square foot footprint, suddenly you're non-conforming, and that means anything you do, you're grandfathered in, but it's potentially a problem if you want to add a porch or something.
Yeah, and the other big thing, I think, is that, as Emily was saying, because of the change in approval required, they consider up to 20 units small, and those would go to the appointed Planning and Development Board instead of to the City Council.
So there's a less democratic
for a
element
special
to
permit.
this,
Yeah,
to this
they're all appointed by the mayor. The mayor has been appointing people who are kind of buying into the whole build, high density strategy. So. And 5 people, so it's not representative of the city at all.
Sure. So, Tarik, Is this a good thing or not a good thing?
Based upon the current draft as it's written, I'd say it's not a good thing. One thing which you guys had just mentioned it was the increased density. And we're only going to increase the density in certain parts of the city. Not every part of the city is going to bear this increased density. So I would like for someone in the city council or the planning department, someone to say, what is Newton going to look like?
You want a build-out analysis, in other
Yes.
words?
What is it going to look like 30, 35 years from now? And is there a town or city in Massachusetts that kind of looks like it right now? And then we'll say, do we want Newton to look like that? Do we just from the density standpoint? So the draft which they have proposed right now needs serious work, and it needs to go back, and it will go back to the planning department and to the city council. But I just hopefully when they do that, they have more meetings with the public.
Well, they've been having meetings in every ward,
yes,
right?
they have.
Are those not good meetings?
But it's only one meeting per ward right now, and I was at the Ward 1 meeting last week, and they did say they are going to have more ward meetings, but I actually want to see them happen. I want to see additional 1, 2, 3, 4 more ward meetings, for every draft ordinance that comes out, because people need to know it's our properties, and we should know what we're going to look like. If you're buying into Newton right now, what is it going to look like 30 to 35 years from now?
You make a great point about what it's going to look like in terms of the. What's really interesting about the way this is structured, and this is one thing I had heard prior to reading the ordinance, is that some of what you're allowed to build depends not on the zoning of your property, which is the traditional standard, but on what else is nearby.
Right. That's right.
So there is this provision which says it requires a special permit on many of the properties under this proposal to build an apartment building. Not on all. Some districts you can build them by right. But there's this asterisk that says if there are 3 existing apartment buildings, what they call small apartment buildings, or the same category, there's also apartment houses nearby, then you can build one by right on that. So it does have this effect, though. The first generation is some people build them by right. Then even if no special permit is ever granted, then there'll be 3 nearby the next property, and then and you could see it spreading across the city where we have a lot of apartment buildings, and that's potentially not a doubling, but maybe a tripling or quadrupling
Even more.
of density in a lot of
And
places.
it's unclear to me if you can add the different categories of apartment, like if you have a small apartment building and 2 large apartment buildings, does that add up to 3 that?
No, it's a terrific
Go.
point. A lot of the definitions are not clear, and the cross-references aren't clear. And we had 2 lawyers, my colleague Nathaniel Lichten and I, poring over this stuff and saying, you don't really know what this means. But then there's also, here's another thing where there'll be a lot of nonconformity, is there's a maximum frontage figure. Well, what if you have more frontage than that? Suddenly you're nonconforming unless you split your lot into 2 lots? Anyway, I'm sorry, let me continue around the table, though. Thank you, Tarik. Emily, a good thing or bad thing?
Thank you so much. So we haven't had the Ward 2 meeting yet. I represent Ward 2. So
That's Newtonville, of course.
Newtonville, yeah, although it has elements of some of the areas around Newtonville. So
Newtonville and environs.
yes, Newtonville and beyond. I did watch some of the Ward 1 meeting, the video of it that I think Julia took. Did you take that video?
That was my YouTube live. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that was really helpful. So I am concerned.
So if people in our audience want to watch this, Julia, where can they find it?
If you go to YouTube, search Julia Malakie, it'll pop up.
How do you spell Malakie?
Malakie.
Search Julia Malakie. You can watch this video.
And if you're on Facebook, I Facebook Live the Ward 3 one. I haven't figured out how to get that off
Facebook and put it
onto a
onto
computer
YouTube,
so I can upload
But
to
yeah,
YouTube. but I
it's
wanna
really
do that.
helpful to be able to watch that because not everyone can come to these meetings. But it's a significant change that's being proposed for the city. And what I keep coming back to is what problem are we trying to solve? I know there are folks who want more density for reasons of affordable housing, but it's not clear to me that this would help with that. 2,400 plus home in Newton, that's over $1 million. So I don't know why. I'm certainly not looking to fall on my sword to create more luxury, expensive housing here.
It's so funny, but of course, it's a terrific point in that the way we calculate the number of affordable units that are required is what you can do by right plus whatever you want to do above that, 1/4 of those units are affordable. So by increasing the number of units by right, you actually decrease the number of low-income units. So for example, if you were going to build a 64-unit building in a place where you can build 10 units by right, you'd need 1/4 of 54 affordable units, or 12 affordable units, because it rounds up. Under this proposal, you could build that 64-unit building with 0 affordable units. And if you wanted to build 100, another 4 units beyond a 68-unit building, only one of those 68 units would need to be affordable. So it's great, but you actually end up with much less affordable housing.
So that is a
under
huge
this.
concern. Then, another argument is, smart growth or transit-oriented development, if any of these that are near public transportation. But I have not seen any proposal that they're going to be limiting the number of cars. So all of a sudden you have cluster housing of 26 units and everyone's got 1 or 2 cars. And particularly if we were to get rid of the winter overnight parking ban, which until recently I had been in favor of, but now as I see—
In favor of getting rid of.
In favor of getting rid of, sorry. Now with this, I'm concerned because then you'd be allowed to have 25 or 50 more cars, and then if you don't have space there, well, you could park them all over the neighborhood. Adding to our congestion and traffic problems, which are already pretty significant. And then I'm really concerned about the idea of moving more of the decision-making to an appointed board. And I say this as someone who does a lot of work of environmental advocacy in the city of Boston, where the city council there, in spite of being full-time with full-time salaries and staff, have way less power than city councilors in Newton on development. There it's really—
The BRA, the Boston Redevelopment.
Yeah,
It has a new name. Boston.
BPDA.
They renamed it?
Planning and Development Authority, but it's Mayor Walsh really has all the power in Boston. And look at the seaport, right? I mean, that was not development that was done with quality of life for regular people in mind. That really helped very wealthy, well-funded developers. I'm also not looking to fall on my sword to help wealthy, well-funded private developers. So, so I do have
Is
a lot
anyone?
no answer. No comment on that. Yeah, some people are, I think. So, so those are some of my concerns that I will be communicating to my colleagues and the planning department as well. Like I said, we haven't had the Ward 2 meeting yet, so I will be looking to how things are presented. But I do think that this is a huge change that's being proposed, and regular residents need to be aware of it, and they need to communicate this to their city councilors. And city councilors ideally will be looking to reflect the views of the residents, not push something on them that they don't want.
I think more and more people are becoming aware, but it doesn't help that we have so little news coverage of local issues. I mean, we've had these, I think we're up to 5 ward meetings now. I don't think the tab has covered any of them, if I recall.
It's a real problem in
Yeah.
terms of news coverage, in terms of accountability, in terms of holding people like me accountable. Because we're now down, I think it's just 1 reporter, and Julie Cohen, she's doing her best. But if you don't have staff, you're
There's
not—
no editor, is there?
No, I don't think so. So that's why you see a lot of stories, I think, that are sort of feel good. I think
You're right.
the
It's
cover
like- it's mostly
this
fluff
week was the
stuff.
chickens.
Yeah.
So yeah, investigative reporting, because that takes time
Sure.
and
It's a lot of
staff.
work.
And so yeah, so how
And
do
we
we
used
get—
to have 2 newspapers, both of which had a reporter's news.
This
the
is what I
Graphic
tell
and the
people. When
Town.
I was a child in Newton,
When was that?
50 years ago.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
okay, I was an infant 50 years ago, but when I was delivering the Newton News Tribune, there were 2 daily newspapers that people paid $1.25 a week for. They were reporters, and it was really, it was a lot easier to know what was going on. And now I think my newsletter, my monthly—
Your excellent email
my
newsletter.
excellent email newsletter that if folks
Good
want to
newsletter.
sign up, emilynorton.org. I do what I can, but it's nothing that is— you work for a newspaper, you know what that really looks like. I'm sure the Lowell
and we've
Sun
been
has
shrinking
had
and
cuts as
shrinking.
well.
Yeah.
So that is a problem. If people even want to know what's going on, it's not that easy for them to find out.
And then people don't find out often until it's too late to do anything about it.
And people are so busy. Just people have lives.
Right.
People in Newton
Yeah.
are very, very busy. That's true.
One thing, if I could just say one quick thing, is to hopefully when this process is finished and there is a final draft on the table, why don't they let us vote on it if it's
Put it on the ballot, you
Yeah,
mean?
put it on the ballot. Yeah, like they did with the charter.
Well, the charter they had to by law.
Yeah, I know, but let's do it like
Like
that.
they did with the marijuana, because people collected signatures.
There were two
Yeah.
questions. So that was even special.
You know, I am sympathetic that we are elected in order to represent people's views and do the deep dive. My issue is that I think the city council needs to reflect people's views.
Yeah.
And what's being talked about here is the way our community looks, the way it feels, how much traffic there is, really what the impact is on affordability, what the impact is on our schools, which I can attest because my kids are in them, are already pretty crowded. Where I live, north of the Mass Pike, I went to Horace Mann, my children go to Horace Mann, and kids now on my street are going to be going across the Mass Pike and Washington Street to Cabot School because of the overcrowding
well,
on
the
the north
capacity
side.
issues. Williams elementary school students are they going to Brown Middle School? I mean, there's not a conveniently located capacity. People say, well, there's enough room. Sure, with enough redistricting, you can and enough use of inappropriate spaces and cramming kids
Right.
in.
And the answer sometimes you hear is,
them.
oh, we shouldn't lift the ladder up, you know, now that we're here. And that's not really what this is about. We can have a level of increased density. I'm not against, I've supported every nonprofit development that's been proposed. But what's being talked about here is extreme. And at some point, shouldn't we be looking out for the people that are already here, the children that are already here? We have a lot of kids with a lot of needs in the Newton schools already. And if we are just packing more in without having the resources, without having the space, how does that serve the kids that are here?
Yeah, and this is something that's been talked about before around this table, but the idea that people move to Newton for a reason because they like Newton. There are many wonderful communities, you know, that have a lot of apartment buildings that are denser. I mean, some people like Manhattan. You know, my brother lived in Brooklyn for a while. Likes cities. He lives in Seattle now. Some people like to live downtown. They like Brookline. They like, you know, parts of Brookline that are denser.
I'm from Brookline.
Yeah, Brookline's. I love Brookline. Terrific restaurants and a lot of great amenities. I love Somerville, but I choose to live in Newton, and I think there are people who live in Newton who don't really like Newton the way it is, at least. Would like to see it be much more like these denser communities, and that perplexes me to some extent. Like, well, why didn't you move to those communities if you like them?
I heard
so
one
much?
person say she wasn't in Brookline because it was too expensive. So I
she
think
wants to make Newton
Newton
too
as expensive as Brookline. Yeah,
Seriously?
and
Wow.
basically I've heard what you hear over and over again. People, I moved here from Somerville, Cambridge, somewhere to have more space, to have a yard, and
to have less traffic.
To
to
me,
have
the
more-
whole premise that we ought to be doing, you know, quote, our share of the regional growth of housing, that the premise that we should be helping the region grow seems crazy to me, because we are. It's basically a fully developed area. Our transportation system, the epicenter, is in kind of the future flood zone. I mean,
Right,
the
after a
sequence
little
of that is
global
crazy.
warming, this whole all these people, you'll be all these houses, and you'll have
You know,
canoes
as
to get
a
from one to the
state,
other.
I think
like
the
Italy.
state should be trying to improve the economy and spread the wealth, because it's like that old SimCity game where the more it grew, and we ought to be spreading out the wealth, spreading out the jobs. You know, we've got
I've heard of that old SimCity
lower.
game. I believe it was called
Long
SimCity.
ago, it was. But you know, I work up in Lowell. I work up in Lowell, and there's a wonderful set of towns around Lowell. Lowell is a great place, and Lawrence is coming along. Worcester's got the baseball team now, and there are other nice places to live aside from Greater Boston.
So talking about the environmental side of things is the perfect segue to our second topic, which is the proposal to add solar panels to a number of city sites. Emily, I'm going to let you lead off the discussion of this because you're on the city council, and I think you're one of the proponents of this
Yep, I am.
proposal. So if you can just tell us first, before telling us whether it's a good idea or not. Obviously, you think it's a good idea since you're proposing it. But what's involved? How many sites? What's going on with it, and sort of describe the proposal?
Yeah, so it technically comes from the mayor. The city council, we weren't the ones that proposed these particular sites, but in general, I am in favor of more solar energy. Unless anyone's been living under a rock, they know that we have this issue of climate change due to our economy being based on burning fossil fuels. And so we do need to be transitioning literally as quickly as we can to more clean energy, including solar, but not limited to solar. There's a lot of offshore wind that's going to be coming down the pike. So I do feel strongly that Newton does need to do its part, and we do have some solar installations on rooftops, municipal building rooftops. We have the solar carport at the Newton South Library. So this is just building on that. This
High
is,
school.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Well, there's a library at the high
Freudian
school.
slip there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we're getting to be talking about the library. Newton South.
So there are some solar panels on Newton municipal buildings already. They're talking about
So
more.
this is
and then-
phase 3, so additional rooftops and...
What are some of the sites that are under consideration?
So the Newton Library, Newton North, both sides,
Newton
both
North High
parking
School.
lots.
Parking lots. Yeah.
Yep, the parking lots. There are, let's see, Bigelow School, I'm trying to remember, Memorial Spalding, I don't have the list
Not
right in front
Bigelow.
of me.
Bigelow's off.
Did Bigelow get taken off? Okay.
Yes. They're not going to cut the 10 large trees there.
Okay, all right. So there's a number of schools. I didn't bring the list with me. And some of the sites were taken off.
Williams
due to,
Roof. Williams Roof is another one.
Albemarle Road, Golf.
Yeah, Albemarle Road was
Taken
taken off. And I was glad that got
Yeah.
taken off. And I
too.
did communicate that to the mayor's office.
So they had a bigger list. It got pared down because people had concerns about trees being cut down. Is that part of the concern?
Right, and so,
And the council's voting on this on Monday, as I understand it, right?
Tuesday, because of
Monday's
the holiday.
President's Day, right. This coming week.
Yeah, we already voted on it in public facilities. And to the issue...
So that's a committee of the council, and what did the committee recommend?
The committee did vote, I want to say it was 5-1. Do you remember?
To approve the item?
To approve.
There were a couple of abstentions on the library and also, I think, Brown because of covering grass.
Okay, you remember. I think of the library. I'm thinking of the
So,
library.
so
Yeah.
most of it was approved?
Most of it was approved, yes.
Okay.
And there were a couple people absent, I think. So, so the concerns that I've heard are the aesthetics and trees coming down, and that's Julia. Julia will speak to that, I'm sure. And to that, you know, I've seen, if people have not seen what it looks like to trees and to the aesthetics of where we get our power now, and I think that's really important to keep in mind. When you get power from coal, the way we get coal is we literally chop the top off of mountains. It's very polluting for the people who live near there. It certainly cuts down a lot more trees than what's being proposed here. Fracked gas is where we get most of our power for our
So
electricity.
just in terms of describing the proposal, though, it's to put these solar panels above parking lots?
On top of parking lots, yeah.
So you would park underneath
Yeah, like at
panels.
Newton South. If people don't know,
Right.
they should go check out the Newton South parking lot.
Okay.
Or REI, or, you know, there's
Or watch
another
my video to see what they're like in the rain.
Or watch Julia's video.
Okay.
But I do think we need to do our part, and I do think that when you look at the incredibly massive changes that we need to do literally in the next 10 to 12 years all over the globe, you know, this is really a drop in the bucket, and I do think what Newton does matters more than what other communities do, maybe not more than Brookline, but we are a leader
love that
community
anymore.
that others
Right.
follow, and I do think that Massachusetts, what we do here in Massachusetts matters more than what, say, Kentucky does, because we are a state that other states follow. So there are ripples from what we do more than ripples from what other individuals and communities do. So that's why I do think it's important that we...
Kentucky's going to do an awesome thing and not re-elect Mitch
We can talk about that in the next show, I agree.
Don't forget about Rand Paul.
Right.
Has he got an opponent? I didn't know.
Yeah, hopefully. I think you will. Anyway, so thank you, Emily. You've laid out the case for putting in these solar panels on these sites. Julia, I know you've had some concerns about this. Why don't you explain
Right.
them?
Well, as we've been saying, it started with a very long list, and there were many, many more tree impacts, which I am glad are not going to happen now. It just seemed like the list was put together without any regard to trying to minimize tree loss. So the big.
How many trees are we talking about?
Oh, I think it started out at like 82 trees, but now we're down to the 12 trees at the library, and that might sound like a small number, but there's actually, I count 21 more spots where you could have trees at the library, but they haven't been replaced over the years.
So there's 12 at the library that would
Yeah.
be lost under
Yeah,
this
there's
proposal, or
there's
replaced
another.
elsewhere, or?
They would move 5 small ones, and they would plant, I think, 68 new small trees.
So on net, there would be more trees.
If you count just number of trees, but it would include taking down a 30-inch red oak, a 17-inch white oak, the
Those
large
are at
trees.
the library.
At the
So
library.
that's 12 at the library.
Right,
Any at
yeah.
any of these other sites?
There's I think it's now 2 trees and 4 trees pruned, honey locusts at the Pleasant Street parking lot. There's a tulip tree that would go at Brown Middle School in front of the school. There's the Newton North, Lowell Ave and Walnut Street parking lots where they would be moving 3-inch trees, and hopefully they would survive.
So we're not talking fully grown trees. 3-inch
Right,
tree.
they were
That's
trees that were
3-inch
planted
caliper,
when the new school was built, but they're doing the plane trees are doing quite well. But basically, my main position is that I think as it kind of is a drop in the bucket when you look at the big picture. And
what's a drop in the bucket?
Let's take the library.
number of trees, or is it a drop in the
the
bucket,
amount
or
of the solar import, the solar impact, the energy that's being generated. At the library, the savings to the city in the original proposal is about $2,000 a year. With the expanded canopy, with the new plan to get rid of not just the trees but all the berms, it would be about $3,000 a year. That's the savings to the city. So it's a minimal financial impact. It's getting rid of the trees in the really probably the best landscaped lot in the city. We've got 14-foot wide berms. We've got the existing trees. It was once a forest before the library was built. It's in an area that is basically the whole wetland complex of the library, the cemetery, the city hall, the ponds, and then flowing into Willows Pond. So removing trees in an area where you want to minimize
So other
flooding
than that, just to be clear, you're opposed to that, to the library portion of the proposal. What about the other sites? Are you okay with those now?
The rooftops are now completely uncontroversial. Before they retrenched and decided not to either cut or prune a couple of large oaks, there was a 36-inch.
So just talking about the current proposal now, are there any other sites other than the library that you're opposed to?
Well, I would prefer not to see the Pleasant Street parking lot trees removed because it's part of the village environment. It's nice to have trees there, but
Pleasant Street,
nobody
Newton
seems
Center,
to. Yeah, it's Newton Center. It's kind of across the street from another parking lot,
Yeah.
so it's not directly impacting abutters in the way that some others are. My main concern is the library because it's kind of our good parking lot. We could have more trees there, and it's being pushed. Basically, the library trustees who have to also approve it besides the city council. They're kind of being enticed with one offer after another to try to make them accept this. It's the
Have they voted for it?
They, I think, are going to have a public hearing later this month, at 20.
After the city council vote? So
Well, hopefully the city council will wait for the library trustees, but
Yeah, part of the project would also expand parking at the library parking lot.
they're being offered. So year after year, they want repaving. They want to repave the parking lot. They're being told, you'll finally get your repaving.
So year after, they don't want to. Just to be clear, they don't want to repave it every year. They've been asking for years. They're not that unreasonable. Last year you repaved it, but darn it, do it again.
Apparently, it's not. It hasn't been a priority. The second thing pulled out was. We'll give you more parking spaces. Okay. 2 plans, 24 spaces.
So there's been some political pressure.
But this would cost money, and then there's the drainage. We'll fix the drainage problem.
I want to let Tarik weigh in on this one, and then you and Emily can talk some more.
So I am also, like Julia, opposed to the solar panels in the library parking lot. I don't want to see any more trees get cut down. I don't think it has to be solar panels or trees. It should be solar panels on as many rooftops as we possibly can. Another reason why I don't want to eliminate more trees, because as you said earlier, I'm from Newtonville. And I live very close to Washington Street. And if many people know this now, but several months ago, along the Mass Pike in Washington Street, the MBTA cut a whole bunch of trees on the south side of Washington Street that are right next to the Mass Pike. And it was devastating to see. It was devastating. And we lost a lot of tree coverage in Newton. And they say they're going to be replaced. I'm waiting for that to happen.
What year were they cut down?
Just a couple months ago.
Oh, really?
In the late fall, I think. I think it was late fall. But I remember one time driving home, and I remember seeing.
Why would do you know why was it for?
The same thing happened to me. So
Yeah.
I reached out to Kay Khan's office, and I worked with her to organize a meeting with MassDOT about it. And it was because they were laying some sort of fiber optic
Mass
cable.
Department of Transportation.
Utility. It was the utility.
No, it was for the
wiring.
commuter rail.
Oh, commuter rail.
It's for the commuter rail, and a lot of them were invasives or whatever. But I was horrified
Yeah.
as well. So
So to be so
they
basically,
are going to replace. They can't replace all of them
Yeah,
though,
the-
So
because
Tarik, your position is the same as Julia's. Is
No
that
more.
fair?
Yeah, just no more trees being cut down. You can put them on rooftops. It's an easy victory for all, and just I would go with that proposal.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to let Emily and Julia talk directly to one another in hopes of finding some area of agreement. Yeah,
Well, I can tell you one we'd probably agree on.
Well, let me do this. Let me let Emily explain why she thinks sacrificing a few trees at the library, or 12 trees at the library, is worthwhile, because that is, I think, what a lot of people are trying to get their brains around.
again, you know, like I said, the way we get our power now is a lot more tree death than the small number at the library that we're talking about. And what we do is very symbolically important. If we're going to say, oh, aesthetics or a handful of trees are more important than more solar energy, then other communities will do the same thing. I have sat down with people in Western Mass when I was working at the Sierra Club who talked to me about how upset they were that solar developers were coming in and tearing down swaths of virgin forest for solar. I don't support that, but how would those people feel to see that people in Newton won't even accept putting solar over parking lots, right? I mean, we all have to be doing, and we need to be doing so much more than this. We need solar on roofs, we need more offshore wind, we need to be driving less, driving electric, we need heat pumps, we need to get rid of oil and gas boilers, we need to stop eating meat. I mean, we need to be doing, I mean, you laugh, but that's more carbon emissions than the transportation sector.
Insects are very good for the environment.
You can laugh, but
No, I'm
the
serious.
science is
I'm
coming,
not, I'm
folks.
not
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah, I mean-
no, they're the
Those
most
are going
efficient
down
source of
too.
protein.
There's a study in,
I know,
in
the
Germany,
population.
70%
Insects, yeah.
plunging of population of
Right, no,
insects. So the whole planet, the way there's a guy I work with at
Global
Conservation
warming
Law
is much
Foundation.
worse than they thought a couple of years ago.
Well, he describes, it's like the earth is doing this with us, just trying to like shake off these humans. And it is, it's like everywhere you look. And so to me, this is really just a drop in the bucket of what we need to do. But if we can't even do this,
So
how
Julia,
are we gonna
what
do the
about it?
harder
What
things?
small sacrifice for us Newton
I
residents to
guess
lose
my
if you-
problem is that it is symbolic. It's like it's a feel-good thing. It seems to be being pushed to make a point that there's something we can point at and say, look how green we are. You know, we have these brand shiny new solar carports, and we're leaving the big things undone. What I think we ought to be doing is what Watertown is doing and has done, rooftop solar ordinance for new construction.
All new construction
They're,
has to
they're
have.
requiring for over 10 or more units or 10,000 or more square feet of commercial, 50% of the roof has to be solar unless there's something shading it that makes it not practical. And for
Like a tree?
exactly right, they don't make you cut trees. And rooftops of parking garages, 90% should be covered by solar.
So if I could respond to that.
And I'd love to know when there's going to be.
Under Massachusetts law, the state determines building codes. Our law department has looked at Watertown's ordinance and said that is not legal because that is generally considered to be part of the building code.
Because Watertown thinks it's legal.
I know, I just sat
Yeah,
down with a
yeah,
Watertown city
yeah.
councilor yesterday, and I understand that that's what their law, but as anyone who's a lawyer can say, lawyers disagree. So I would be perfectly willing to move forward to try to do that, but we should keep in mind that our own law department says that that's not legal.
Well, I kind of often feel that our administration, which might include the law department, tends to not want to do things that inconvenience developers.
I used to work
Yeah,
on building codes
yeah,
when I was at Sierra
yeah.
Club. I came to this of my own accord, having been there and argued in favor of solar-ready roofs, not even full
right.
solar, to the Board of Building Regulations and Standards. They're the ones that handle building codes. So I already knew that this was not something that we're really supposed to be handling. I think it would be terrific if Newton tried it anyway, but we could be in a situation where we would be sued and we would lose. And I generally don't want to set us
But I
up
think
for
if
something
the
like
more
that.
the more time, and I think there's already talk at possibly doing something at the state level, and I think the more cities and towns try to do it themselves, it's going to be like the plastic bag ban.
So-
I
where,
table agree, but I'm just saying it's
right.
not so easy necessarily.
So I think we have not 100% common ground on this one. I'm going to abstain. I've talked a lot on the first time. I'll abstain from giving my 2 cents on this right now, so we have time for the next topic, which is also environmental related. So this is what happened with the electricity grid, and essentially, and I guess, Julia, thank you for bringing
Helpful aid
this.
brought
This
that, yes.
helpful aid. Most
My
Newton
letter.
residents probably got one of these in the mail. Newton Power Choice, and I think that anyone who pays an electric bill knows that there is a portion of the electricity that comes from coal and other non-sustainable sources, and a portion that comes from solar, wind, and other sustainable sources. And what this proposal has done is taken us from the state minimum of 14% to giving us 3 tiers in Newton. 3 tiers of 14%, the default of the standard offering of 60%, which all Newton residents will be switched to unless they opt up or opt down, and the green option of 100%. And it costs a little more for the higher options. Emily, you were the lead proponent, as far as I know, of
Yes.
this. This was your idea.
This was my idea to bring this to Newton, so I'm really excited to see this happen.
So it's happened. The mayor and your colleagues came on board and made it happen. We all have this chance now to opt up or opt down or stay where we are. Tell us what we should do and why.
Yeah, so if folks do nothing, throw this away or recycle it or whatever, they will automatically be getting more green energy as part of their mix in their electricity. So
And paying less than we were before, is that right?
And paying less. You can't promise that that'll be the case forever, but it certainly would not. We don't expect that it would be a big discrepancy. And so that, I think, for folks who want to be more green, that is the easiest thing to do. I think it's really important for people to keep in mind that there are a lot of third-party electricity suppliers, and so people get these calls, they get these flyers. This is something that's trustworthy. There's no greenwashing with this, because sometimes these offers are from these companies that are not necessarily reputable, and the rates can change after 6 months.
If people have signed up with one of those companies, can they still opt for this?
Yes.
Can they get out of that other contract?
They need to call the 1-800 number that's on this flyer, but they absolutely can.
And is this also on the city website somewhere?
It should be, yeah, it is. There's a link on the city website, because I actually called
So
the
for
1-800
those who lost this piece of paper, it's 1-833. Oh, that's the customer support. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, if you go to newtonma.gov, I think it's probably one of the
Yes.
cycling.
NewtonPowerChoice.com is the website. Oh, it's like NewtonPowerChoice.com.
So, but if they do want to have 100% green energy, then they should call the 1-800 number. And we were doing some math before the show. It's a very small amount extra that people would be paying.
It's like 4% more than the default option.
So to have the greenest option, people can do that, and I would recommend. That's what I do.
Okay. I'll go around the table. Tarik, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't see why there isn't any reason to go to 100% green energy on that one. I know the cost is minimal. I don't think it's going to be a major dent in someone's banking account. So I'd say go with it, because it is the right thing to do, to go green with our energy, because again, as you said earlier, we all said earlier, climate change is real and it is happening, and we need to do our share.
Julia, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I think one of the nice things about it is that the consolidated purchasing power of the city. So it's basically the city bargaining, and because it's opt out rather than opt in, and there's a lot of inertia, I guess people will tend to stay in more than they would opt in if it were opt in. So there's enough of a market that it's attractive to get a good rate. As we said, the rate won't necessarily always be lower, I guess, than Eversource it is this time of year, but it is fixed for 22 months, so you know what you're getting for then. And I did the math. My average electric bill, I looked at 12 months, so my average bill, it's $35. The generation part of that is $16, and literally it's
You don't use very much electricity at all.
no.
Julia.
Well, I don't have a clothes dryer, and I don't have a dishwasher. So
You have
literally,
lights?
I do have lights, but only in
Computer?
only in the room I'm in. And it's
good.
literally 52-cent difference between opting up and the standard offer. So it's,
So I'll quickly put my 2 cents in on this.
Pocket change.
It was a total no-brainer. As soon as I got the piece of paper, I signed up for the 100%. I think that most Newton residents will, once they look at how it's like 30-something cents difference. It goes from 11.34 for the standard offering to 11.75. So literally, 41 cents per kilowatt hour, about 4% more, and it's not doing enough. It's not like we can all rest on our laurels after that and go, oh, we've saved the planet. But it's one little thing we can do.
To hit that same theme again, this was really, really powerful that the mayor made this choice, because she got to decide. City Council voted to authorize her to move forward, but she chose the 60% as the default rate with this option to go up to 100%. The closest before that was Brookline, which was not even at 40%.
So we're taking the lead. That's
we're
fabulous.
absolutely in the lead.
Thank you, Emily.
And
And
Boston,
now I'm going to cut you off so we can get to the next topic.
Oh, okay.
We only have a couple minutes.
Other communities are looking at what we did, and they're going to hopefully
Terrific.
follow.
Thank you, Emily. The final topic for the night, and we tried to cram in a fourth one, so it'll be real quick, is rumor has it that the City Council is considering expanding the plastic bag ban to include smaller businesses and heavier weight plastics, and imposing a 10-cent per bag fee on paper bags.
Yep.
So I'm going to go around the table real quick and see what people think of this idea. Tarik, why don't you lead this one off?
I have to go really quick. I know
Yes.
the city of Cambridge, where I work, they have a 10-cent fee on paper bags. So I say if Newton really wants to take the lead, I would up the 10 cents to 25 cents. Make it a quarter.
But you support the proposal?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julia?
I'm okay with the fees on the plastic of all types and all sizes.
What about the prohibition, the ban on plastic?
Oh yeah, right. The ban on plastic is fine. I'm a big user of freebie reusable bags that you get at conferences and.
Right. So what do you think about the 10-cent fee for paper bags?
Well, see, paper, I believe they're probably made from recycled paper, and you want to have a market for recycling paper.
Some percentage. They're not 100%.
They're craft paper brown. It's brown.
Okay.
I don't think they're using virgin trees. But I find the paper bags very useful for recycling paper. So I want to keep my stuff contained.
So you do not want to pay 10 cents a
I
bag
wouldn't.
for this?
Yeah.
Okay, Emily.
How could the tree woman be against the 10-cent fee on bags? You can only recycle them so many times. You're going to be using virgin material at some point. What if they came from library trees? I'm shocked.
I know that's not going to happen. No,
Someone's library.
They do the mountaintop mining. They get their coal. They cut down the trees, and then they make
they're really just the perfect size. And actually, there's different sizes. There's the standard grocery bag, perfect for recycling newspapers if people still buy them, and the smaller size, perfect for recycling all your other stuff. And I don't want all that stuff flying out of the.
Emily, I know you're the sponsor of this.
Well, Allison Leary has really led on it, but I've been a strong.
Okay,
wing
we
woman.
were the sponsor of the earlier version of the earlier incarnation of the original one.
Allison really led, and I was her wing woman.
Oh, okay, all right. So,
Yeah.
any thoughts on why your colleagues?
So Programs and Services already approved.
A committee of the council.
Yeah, approved this proposal unanimously, and absolutely we need to be doing this.
And when will it be coming to the full council?
Tuesday.
Oh, that will also be voted on
I
Tuesday.
believe so, yeah.
So to our audience, if you are for or against any of these things we've discussed tonight, call your city councilors, because some of them are going to be voted on very soon, and some of them will be shaped.
Yes, and again, it's Newton in the lead, and other communities will be looking into us.
And thank you very much to our fabulous crew, our director Eric and Jack, and thank you Tarik, thank you Emily, thank you Julia, and thank you at home for watching, and please join us again next time when we try to find just a little bit more common ground.
When can we talk?
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Information on hot water heating.
No. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out the words.
World music playing track now.
No.
Let me try. Our daughter gets confused about which details in a story are important.
Which paper towels are most absorbent?
What?
Here are 5 product reviews.
Why are you not getting me?
See, I told you.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.